Hi and welcome to Herbie's Horror Journey. I'm Rob.
And I'm Herbie.
Throughout lockdown I've been taking Herbie on a journey of discovery into one of my passions in life, horror movies.
I've already been introduced to some well-known classics. Think Lost Boys, Poltergeist, Gremlins, but I've decided I want to see a few more.
So I've decided to start introducing Herbie to some of the more forgotten gems of horror cinema. Films that I discovered when I was not much older than Herbie is now.
And I'd like to see now if they stand the test of time with his generation.
And I figured if we're doing this, let's add into the mix one of my other interests, YouTube.
And maybe even encourage or discourage you from digging out some of these old classics as well.
So without any more preamble,
Welcome to Herbie's Journey into Horror.
Okay, do you want to know what movie we've got for you this week?
Yeah.
This week we have Christine.
Nan's drinking buddy.
nope, Christine. It's a movie about a car.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it is wow actually. It's a 1983 movie directed by John Carpenter, who made the first two Halloween movies and one of my all-time favourites, Big Trouble in Little China. It stars Alexander Paul from Baywatch, Harry Dean Stanton from, well, everything in the 80s, and others who right now I can't even remember, but I'm sure will come back to me as we are watching.
I have no clue who any of those people are.
Would it help at all if I told you it was based on a Stephen King book?
I know who he is.
I thought you might.
So it's the age-old story of a bullied high school kid, buys a cursed car helps him become popular, but that popularity comes at a price. What do you say, bud? Do you want to give it a go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well we'll be back in a moment with our reviews, recommendations and thoughts on Christine.
Okay. Show me.
While Herbs is watching, let me give you an overview of what happens for those who don't know or have forgotten. Christine is the story of Arnie, your stereotypical bullied US high school teen. He's got the required glasses, the essential geeky clothes, and most importantly, no car.
I think maybe I'll just beat off.
Early on, we see him in auto shop class, suffering at the hands of the bullies. The main bully, ironically named Buddy, is your average knife-wielding 24-year-old high school teenager, and his various henchmen that include Stu from Friday the 13th Part 2, the guy from the beginning of Ghostbusters, and Moochie, who I've never seen in anything else before or since. These older than high school looking teens taunt Arnie in a very grown-up way by stealing his lunch, requiring him to be rescued from these lunch snatchers by our other main character Dennis, our stereotypical 80s high school heartthrob, who just happens to be Arnie's longtime Bessie. And by rescued I mean he stands nervously until the teacher finally appears to calm the situation.
That's funny, buddy. Real funny.
After this incident, Arnie and Dennis are out driving when Arnie gets a strange urge to buy a junked up rust bucket of a car.
Stop the car, Dennis. Stop the car. Stop the car, quick.
He happens to notice at the side of the road, through a hedge, with the smallest for sale sign known to man on it. Man, those are good glasses. At this point, as an audience member, we know something's wrong cause, well, there's fixer-uppers and then there's this. Anyway, he manages to negotiate buying it
How much do you want for? I mean, whatever it is, it's not enough.
for $200 from this guy, who obviously needs the money so he can move to Chicago and live next to Kevin and save him from the wet bandits. Naturally, his Bessie, his mum and his dad don't like the fact he's bought a rust bucket.
I didn't let him. I mean, he wanted the car and he bought it.
So he's forced it to keep it in storage while he fixes her up. And fix her up he does, by spending all his money, time and, unbeknown to him, a lot of supernatural assistance. With this he manages to do an amazing job. It's gone from this to this. I've got to think the cursed part of things really helped him here. Initially things are great for Arnie. He gets some cool 70s leather, he decided he no longer needs glasses, and he gets the girl that all the other guys are after, Lee, played by Alexander Paul, who's yet to find her fame and don a red Baywatch swimsuit. He also gets a job working for Darnell, the scrap merchant who took pity on him when he bought the car. Unfortunately, here is where things start to take a turn for the worst. Remember the bullies from earlier? Well, they don't like his car, and they total it. Taking bullying a step up from lunch stealing, now they take a crap on the dashboard, amongst other things. Well, this makes Christine mad, and from this point forward, no one is safe. All the bullies start mysteriously having accidents in very escapable ways. Come on, Moochie, just climb over the bonnet. On top of this, Dennis and Lee join forces in a hatred of the car.
As if the car were
jealous, Arnie.
Needless to say, Christine doesn't like them either. Even Darnell, Arnie's grumpy but kind-hearted scrapyard boss, isn't safe, which just shows how twisted Christine really is, because other than being grumpy, he's been nothing but helpful to Arnie and Christine. Despite Harry Dean Stanton showing up as a cop, he really doesn't do much other than irritate Arnie. So it's up to Dennis and Lee to come together and save the day in a distinctly anticlimactic battle between Christine and a big yellow digger. Think of Ramon from Cars battling Scoop from Bob the Builder, and that's your ending. It just leaves Harry Dean Stanton to have the final words.
Hey, some things can't be helped. Some people do.
Yeah.
Poignant, Harry. Poignant.
Okay, so that was Christine. Herbs, did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's not one of my faves. I've enjoyed others more, and it was just meh. I would give the overall enjoyment a 4 out of 7. How did it stand up to you?
Personally, I found it a lot tamer than from what I remember it was like as a child. John Carpenter is one of the all-time greats, but this isn't one of his best. I felt it was more of a paint-by-numbers TV movie than a full-on feature. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 7. Okay, how did this stand up on a scariness level?
It wasn't very scary. Stephen King, and he's supposed to be the master of horror. I kept waiting for all the scares, but they just never came. I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 7.
Similar for me. Like I mentioned, this one is quite tame in comparison to some of the other movies we've watched recently. Probably the scariest part is when Buddy threatened Arnie's lunch at the start of the movie.
Terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping some of the other films we've got will give you a bit more of a fright, but this one scores unfortunately quite a lowly 3 out of 7. Okay, with that in mind, how do you think its goriness stood up?
It wasn't very gory. There was a guy getting crushed by a car, a guy getting set on fire, but that's about as gory as it got. I'm going to give this one 3 out of 7.
Okay, again, the tameness of this movie makes me think this is going to score quite lowly. I can't actually really remember any goriness at all, to be honest. So I'm going to give this one a low 2 out of 7. So far on this journey, we've seen our fair share of cheesy movies. So how did this one fare? The lower the score, the cheesier the movie. Herbs?
It wasn't too cheesy in my opinion. It was pretty good acting and all for the most part quite believable. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 7.
Okay, this category surprised me the most. For a movie about a car that kills, I would expect this to be a lot cheesier than it actually was. The cheesiest moment in it is probably Moochie's death, where, let's be honest, if he climbed over the bonnet, he probably would have survived. But instead, he just stands there and gets crushed to death. So I'm going to score this one, with that scene in mind, just a 5 out of 7. One of my favourite elements in all these movies is special effects. Herbie, how do you think this one stood up?
The effects were quite good, from the gas station explosion and Christine fixing herself, which was in reverse but was done really well. For me, this is a good, solid 5 out of 7.
Now, I love a good practical special effects movie, and this one, probably no exception. Now, there wasn't a lot in there, but what there was done really well. For that reason, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 7 myself. Okay, one final question for you. Rewatchability. Would you watch this one again?
Yeah, but I'm in no rush. I've got other movies from my journey to rewatch again, like Jaws, 3D, Burbs and Frighteners. So I'm going to give this one a 2.
Pretty similar from me. It's the kind of movie that if I came across late at night while I'm waiting to go to bed, and it came on, I'd probably watch it. Would I get the DVD out and put it on especially? Probably not. So, similar from me. 2 out of 7, I'm afraid. Okay, so that being said, how did it stand up?
My total score was 23 out of 42. How did it do for you?
This one only managed to get a 20 out of 42 for me, which gives it an overall score of 43 out of 84. As we haven't scored anything yet, this score makes it our favourite movie, and at the same time, our least favourite.
I suspect the more we do this movie will have neither of those titles. I think both of our opinions could be summarised with the word meh, so it's always going to be a mid-table movie for me.
I'd agree. Knowing some of the other movies that we've got in line, this one's always going to be just an average movie. However, if you've got a spare 1 hour 40, it is worth a watch, at least once. Just don't worry about getting scared. You can turn the lights out, you'll be fine.
Otherwise, join us next time for another chapter in Herbie's journey into horror.
Bye for
For now.